Okay, we are live, and it is the midterm election coming to a close. In terms of is anything interesting like actually going to happen? Probably not. Um, and I just felt, I wasn't entirely sure that I had anything to say about this, but I mean, of course, I always have something to say about literally everything because, hey, I'm Prince of Queens, and that is one of the things I'm known for. I might not be known for shutting up or taking a breath, but I certainly can talk a lot. And I gotta stop looking at these like weird bodybuilder videos of these guys. It's this weird addiction. I need to be opening up the live chat to see if anyone's showing up. There's already a few people watching. That's sweet. That's really sweet. So Blue Grave is what I call this stream. And make sure to give it a like. And if you're a friend of mine and you want to show up and say hi in the chat and talk to some stuff, to talk to some people, talk to some me and my friend Toglin. We're gonna be chilling. We're gonna be chilling. So that's sort of the deal. So say hi, Toglin. Toglin, I just
hello.
Hey, I met recently through our friend Lord Nurgle, who does a stream called, I believe, a Stream of Corruption that he does every week or so, where he talks about general geeky stuff. If I ever feel like I want to talk about something geeky and I notice that he's streaming, I'm like, ooh, I watched the new Marvel movie. And then I show up, and that's kind of what it's like. So, and we're going to be working on a project together, Toglin and I, but it's top secret. So,
I met you before on one of Miss Misa's streams, but I think you forgot about me.
Oh, okay. Well, that's, you know what? I believe you because love Miss Misa. Absolutely adore that girl. And yeah, that was would have been a long time ago because I haven't been on one of her streams. I have this like weird thing that happened with me. And what it is that like I used to stream a lot because I used to drink a lot. Like I used to drink every night. Like, it was a problem kind of, and people would make fun of me on YouTube because my videos are pretty well composed. They're scripted, and so people are like, yeah, it's interesting that you must be one of these functional alcoholic people. And I'm like, I guess no, I mean I could stop maybe. And they're like, yeah, okay, whatever, dude. And then I did, and then I stopped going on streams like almost entirely for 3 or 4 months. And then what the weird thing that happened was that I wasn't on streams for a while, and then the whole like Kraut server fiasco happened, and then it turned into like the blood sports thing. And I hadn't been streaming, so I didn't know about any of that stuff. Like I just because I wasn't even using Discord at all. So I was like, I'm not in any of these stupid Discord servers. I don't.
Sorry, there's a baby in the background, just so you know.
No worries. I'm like, yeah, I'm not. I don't even use Discord. I don't know what you guys are even talking about with this like Kraut server and shit. Like, I don't even. What are you talking about? But then it included my friend Wizard of Cause, and I had to defend him because I knew for a fact that they were saying untrue things about him. Like it was just not true what they were saying about him. So I had to defend him, and then the blood sports people started talking about me a lot, even though I never went in their stupid streams anyway. And that happened. And so I sort of stopped going into a lot of streams, even though there's like all sorts of people that I still really love, like Miss Misa, who I adore. But like, there's a certain crowd, and I'm just like, I don't want to be around that type of thing. And then I was also, the other thing is that I was locked out of my channel for about 9 months. I couldn't really stream because of 4 different hate speech strikes. So for about a year straight, I couldn't stream for 75% of that year. So I just forgot that I could stream. So here I am streaming with Toglin, and we're going to be talking about these midterm results because you live in Alaska, right?
Yes, I did. I need to check those. I haven't checked them yet because I know the polls closed only like an hour or so ago.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually haven't checked the results yet. I probably should.
Yeah. And thing is, there it's still open, but like I am happy with these results. And preliminary, just sort of the thing that is going through my head is that I live in Seattle. Seattle is one of the hotbeds of Antifa kind of activity, and it's not so bad. Like Seattle could have easily gone as bad as like Portland and Berkeley. And the reason it didn't is because this one chick didn't win for mayor. There was this woman who tried to run last year for mayor named Nikita Oliver, and she's this like Black Lives Matter slam poet wacko who's never held a political position at all. And she's this wacko woman, and she tried to run for mayor and she got third place. So it's like she could have easily been the mayor here, and she was like calling for a recount and everything. And man, it was pretty weird. So if she had won, it probably would have been one of these places kind of like, Portland and Berkeley, where Antifa just decides to go ahead and cause violence and shut down intersections, and the police don't really do anything about it because reasons. And that didn't actually happen here, and the police do their job. But it's not because there's not that many Antifa people here, because there's a lot. Like there's an Antifa sticker just blocks away from me on a corner that I walk by frequently. Like there's Antifa stickers around my neighborhood. And that's weird for me, being a YouTube personality. Like granted, they don't know what I look like. I like to believe, but I'm not entirely sure that they don't, so that I get really nervous. And so the thing that I think a lot of people, a lot of my audience is from red states, and they like to watch my channel because they feel that my perspective gives them an insight into the far left or the left or whatever, because I do know so many far leftists. Like I've lived in the sort of like the hotbeds of far leftism in the United States. Aside from Portland, Oregon, I've lived in all of them.
Sorry, I haven't streamed as much because I have a baby, but it's a little fussy. But I actually voted Democrat, but mostly because I know Baggage personally, and he's a really nice guy, like he is, and he's like not. All of our Democrats are like not associated with the far left, but I think it's because we're a red state, so all of our Democrats are like middle Democrats, like they're very center left. None of them are far left at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like that's entirely fair. For me, what I was most worried about was two outcomes. So like, okay, this is one thing that I will say categorically about people who live in these like hard, because you live in a red state, like you're one of the like liberal people in the red state, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, and that's like a lot of my audience probably, and a lot of people I've met on YouTube, and like people that are socially liberal and that kind of a thing, but they come from a conservative state or conservative background, and that's like totally understandable. Like I actually like that. Like I'm somebody who's growingly fiscally conservative in certain ways, but like very socially liberal because obviously, and I feel like that's it's cool that we have the internet so that such people can meet each other. You know what I mean? And what my like this is the message that I want to hammer home for people that are listening. People in these really, really far leftist areas like Seattle, they literally are in denial, and they have been in denial for the past 2 years. They literally think that the Democrats won, in 2016 and everything was a hoax. And it's just this weird, twisted, delusional, pathological thing that leftists are able to convince themselves of due to, like, Clinton winning by the 3 million 3 million dead people and illegal immigrants or whatever that voted for her, or what they also convince themselves that every time the Republicans win, it's because of gerrymandering, and also they think that, oh, maybe it's because of fake news and conspiracy theories like Alex Jones that convinced everybody to vote for Republicans, and that's the other factor. And also it's because of, what's the other thing that they would maybe use to justify their discontent?
I saw something that was trending on Facebook that was like people were saying that that North Dakota, they're being very unfair towards Native Americans because they went ahead and voted to make a law where you have to have photo ID in order to vote. Like, this is one of the few states where you don't even need a voter ID, you just need a photo ID, and they're saying it's unfair to Native Americans because they don't allow a PO box. But then I checked out the website to see if that was true, like their actual state one, and they said that if you don't have a PO box because you live on a reservation, you can actually get a valid, like, I guess a tribal ID that has a photo, and you don't actually need, and that'll actually count as your residence because it just puts you at so-and-so reservation. So that was kind of a lie that was being spread, that it really doesn't interfere with Native Americans' right to vote.
Yeah. I mean, the media will tell these people whatever, it's like, oh, the only reason that the Democrats lost is because of the Native Americans that voter disenfranchisement for the Native Americans. That was why we lost. And there's these people that, like, they'll do everything they can to believe it. They will do everything they can to be in denial that somehow 2016 was this fluke. It was this entire accident. And really, I think that actually the biggest thing is that if you actually look at the demographics of eligible voters who voted, Republican, Democrat, or not at all, the biggest portion didn't vote. And so there's this big, huge amount of Democrat people who are thinking to themselves, well, okay, so the reason why we lost in 2016 is because people didn't vote. And clearly we're going to retake everything in the midterms, and then we're going to impeach Trump because he's such an icky, mean man. And he says mean things, and he wants to build the wall, which is unconstitutional to the undocumented voters that we need to get into the nation, obviously. And, like, I don't want to say empathize with that mindset, but I understand how, if you didn't do, like, months and months and months of political research in the way that I did prior to the 2016 election, that would be believable, because so many places are telling these people exactly that, that, like, oh, just wait for the midterms. Just wait for the midterms. There's going to be a blue wave and we're going to take everything back. But okay, so yeah, they did win in the House, but they lost in the Senate. And the good news is that, and this is actually ultimately good news all around for me as an individual, for selfish me, just Prince of Queens being selfish right here. It's going to prove to these people that know their little delusion. Like, there was all sorts of forecasts saying that the Republicans would maintain the Senate, but the people in far leftist areas are way more delusional than that. Like, they're going to tell themselves, no, I don't care what the forecasts say. We will conquer the Senate and conquer Congress. And they can tell themselves that because the forecasts said that Hillary Clinton was going to win in 2016. And so they're thinking to themselves, well, we know that polls can be wrong. If every angry woman shows up to vote, every woman who is inspired by Kavanaugh shows up to vote, then the Democrats will retake the House and the Senate, and they were thinking that to themselves. Well, that's just not true. That's literally just not true. Their little, their little trail of blood and trail of lies and trail of, the Me Too lie fest and the Antifa blood and pretending that it was actually all the Proud Boys and Patriot Prayer, blah, blah, blah. That didn't pay off. It didn't work out in their favor. And they thought that maybe it would, and that they would just sort of forget about it after the midterms. Well, that doesn't work out for them. And that's good. But what's important for me, and this is why it makes it a little bit selfish for me, is that they did win the House, which ultimately isn't that important. Like they're not going to be able to get anything done without the Senate on their side, like anything substantial, But they got the House, so they're not going to sit. They're not going to decide that they need to like sponsor some full-on riots or anything. And that's where I would start to be afraid as an individual, because I do live in Seattle. And, like if they had lost the House and the Senate, then Democrats and weaponized Democrats like Antifa foot soldiers, like they would decide that, Donald Trump was a fascist and he rigged the elections, and let's go burn down some houses, and maybe they have Prince of Queens's address. I don't know. Like maybe they have a little Rolodex of all of the local YouTubers that live in Seattle. Like the amazing atheist lives in Seattle. So that's what that's how I'm feeling at the moment. There's all sorts of people in the chat. I have a pretty sizable audience. So what's up, everybody? And yeah, I'm watching.
The thing is, like, we don't really have Antifa up here. I don't know is that something that's only going on in the blue states, because I think I saw Antifa when we had our own little version of the Women's March, which we did, which I kind of thought was hilarious because it was like -10, and I'm like, you people are crazy. And so they might have been Antifa, or they could have just been bundled. I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah. So I have this new stalker. He's this gay church lady. He's in the chat. His name is Plato Emerson, and he really likes to insult me a lot, and in this very gay church lady kind of way. Like he seems like he's probably over 50, and so he's just ripping those zings to me, and they really, really hurt. Everybody in the chat always just ignores him, and he doesn't understand that if everybody ignores him, that means that no one cares about his little stuff. Okay, Pokey Trainer Alex. Wait, is Pokey Trainer Alex that guy that would like seriously take MDMA on my live streams? Is this that same guy? Because I sort of remember you. Joshua Martin said, I stalk you too. Don't leave me out. Do you? Do you stalk me? I want more stalkers. The mess up thing is that there was a time in my 20s. see, this is just gonna be me. Sometimes I might be drinking. I might be kind of drinking a little bit, and I'm just gonna say stupid shit. So, but I used to make this joke that I always wanted a stalker, and then I got one. I got a stalker in my like mid to late 20s, when I was pretty cute and I was making music, and he was this guy who was what was his thing? He was a graffiti street art guy. He would stencil street art in San Francisco, and he was like notorious for being a meth addict.
When I think of like stencil street art, I think of Bert from Mary Poppins.
I don't even know what that was. I mean, I know what Mary Poppins was, but I don't know who that is.
Remember when they first see Bert, the guy who's like a chimney sweep and he does all sorts of jobs and he's always running into them when they first meet him, he's doing chalk paintings on the sidewalk.
Yeah. Oh, Plato, just for the record, I'm seriously 65 years old, just so you know. And I sound like this, just so you know. So you're in good company, buddy. Don't worry. No. So this street artist, like, started kind of okay. So he did some art for some restaurant, and he said, "Yeah, hey Prince, so I got this a free dinner for two to this restaurant, and I because I did some art for it." And I this was during the period when I was actually like doing opiates all the time, so I didn't have that much money, and I was always like broke and hungry. So I was like, "Oh, really? Dinner?" And he was like, "Yeah, do you want to go?" And I was like, "Yeah, right now, because I'm hungry. Let's go." And he was like, "Well, I was thinking more like on Tuesday." And I'm like, "Oh, like you're trying to like set a date for this thing." Oh. Uh and so I said, I kind of like I'll get back to you later. I'll get back to you later. Um well, apparently I didn't get the opportunity to get back to him because there was two different times over the course of the next 2 weeks that I walked out of my door and he was there, like out in front of my door, and he was texting me like multiple times a day every day for that 2 weeks. It was actually this kind of crazy thing. So yeah.
I had to break up with a stalker I never dated. This guy took me and my friend to the movie because I thought it was just, oh, hey, he's taking all of us to the movie. But then I didn't realize in his mind that was a date. And after that, he started calling me and calling me his girlfriend and leaving creepy messages on my phone and leaving gifts by my door. And it was really weirding me out when I was like, answer the phone. I'm like, I'm not your girlfriend. And he's like, are we fighting? Then on Christmas Eve, he actually came over and I finally saw him because it was like 3 months of creepy messages. And then he's like, what's wrong? You seem upset. And I'm like, I don't want to be your girlfriend. He's like, why is that? What's wrong? And then I just made up something. I'm like, because you're never around. A message is not good enough. Like you're a terrible boyfriend. I never see you. That's why I'm breaking up with you. And he's like, I understand. And then I never saw him again.
Oh, because that worked?
Yes, it did.
So that's there you go. If there's any ladies in the audience and you get a stalker, just tell him that you're breaking up. Like acknowledge the relationship that's in his head and then cut it off. Let him down easy though. Be nice about it. Like don't break his heart.
I don't know why that worked. Like 3 months of him being creepy and then he just disappeared.
So okay, so Plato Emerson, being the gay church lady that he is, I will admit, Plato, I actually secretly love you. Never stop commenting and obsessively stalking me because I'm it's not you who stalks me, it's me who stalks my stalkers. That's actually how things work. So he is saying some things that are actually worth addressing because he's obsessed with trying to find flaws in my arguments. And, I'm an imperfect man. And one of the things he says is, what it means is that Trump will now be subject to oversight by Congress. That is true. But what it won't mean is that the House and the Senate will think that they're going to be able to like destroy our democracy and, usurp the will of the voters and impeach him. That would be the scary thing. If they decided that they could just impeach the democratically elected president, and that would not just be a really, really bad precedent by itself, but that would mean that we negotiated with terrorists. Like, let's be real here. Like, what have they been doing? The Democrats, they've been funding and excusing domestic terrorists. We all know that the Democrats, like whatever money Antifa is getting, and their little like documentarians that are following around the Proud Boys in New York City so that they can get a little bit of footage of when the Proud Boys fight back, so that they can post it. That didn't happen on accident. And then the mainstream media does not cover all of the Antifa violence. That's because of the Democratic Party. We know that the mainstream media is incredibly biased to the Democratic Party. So if we were to, allow them to win an election totally, And, that would embolden them and think, oh, cool. So our little strategies here are working and you better not get in our way or else. That's a horrible precedent to set. However, is it a bad thing that Trump will be subject to oversight by Congress? No, it's not a bad thing. I didn't vote for Trump. I've never voted for a Republican. In fact, I went all the way down to like my little election board, the administration building of city government. I went in there, realized I couldn't vote for any libertarians, looked at all of the little ballot measures that were on the thing, and they were all stupid. Like they're just things that I wasn't necessarily entirely opposed to, but I would have to really study for a long time to make sure I was actually in favor of them. So I just didn't vote on anything. I crumpled it up and I tweeted it, the picture of me of my little ballot. And I was like that angsty teenager that was like, I didn't vote at all because I'm cool. I'm a rebel. That's actually a little bit of what my political attitude actually is. So I don't have any problem with Trump having criticism in the Congress. Like, I really don't. And there's a great argument to be made for the notion that there always should be a little bit of push and pull in the House and Senate. And I didn't want to say anything ahead of time in terms of making that prediction, because my message going into this election was I really, really wanted to stress, I will repeat myself, we don't negotiate with terrorists. You can't let the bullies win. You can't let the bullies think that bullying is worth doing. You can't do that. But at the same time, you shouldn't become like some mega power that is unquestioned yourself or embolden anybody who's trying to do that. So the other thing is people are arguing about whether or not Trump is pro-gay. Okay, I think that as an individual, he's probably pro-gay. That's just the read I get from him. He's a New York billionaire. He has a high-fashion wife. She buys all her clothes. Like every little tailor-made outfit that she gets is from a gay guy. Let's be real. He was invited to the Republican Party by gay men in 2011 when Go Proud invited him. And that is the kind of thing that actually sticks around. Milo Yiannopoulos didn't come from nowhere. Peter Thiel spoke at the Republican National Convention and got a standing ovation talking about how he's a gay man. That doesn't come from nowhere. There's no way that Trump is actually homophobic. But question is, did Trump actually do anything for gay rights? Maybe not. Do you want to know why? Because what right don't we have?
I was actually going to ask that. I'm like, is there any gay rights that are, like, I know gay marriage is now legal. Was there anything else we were supposed to be fighting for?
Yeah, I don't know. We even get pills to like make it so that like we were not HIV positive, and it's like largely subsidized by the government. Like what other right do we want? Like I'm not, like there's fear mongers trying to say that the LGBT wants to include the P in it now, and for the pedophiles, I'm no, not me. I don't need that right. No, I'm cool. I'm good with inviting.
I wouldn't mind inviting the polyamorous in though.
Oh, I don't care about the polyamorous. Yeah. So suppose, okay, now shut up. We can't be fired for being gay. That's not true. I don't believe that that's true.
Well, I know that I know that they recently updated the law for like no discrimination up here in Alaska, and when I went to the gay bar, they were all saying, "Man, now we can fire people if they're straight." That just ruins my business. Everyone was just joking about that.
Well, I think that the issue is that they talked about whether or not they could one of the people in the Trump administration mentioned the fact that the Civil Rights Amendment of I believe it was 1964 does not apply to worker discrimination based around sexuality, which is true. It doesn't. It only applies, I believe, to race. And maybe
state by state, they mostly have non-discrimination acts based on sexuality. Like I said, I think it was 2 years ago that they updated the one to include sexuality in Alaska, and this is a red state, so I'd assume most states have it, at least on the state level.
Yeah. Well, okay, first of all, there's that. And second of all, like, okay, so let's say that one of these states, these religious right dominated states, decides that they want to make it so that you can fire people for being gay and everything. Well, that's just going to give Trump a great opportunity to prove that he actually really does care about that issue, because even when he refused to like North Carolina had their weird little bathroom controversy thing, like they were like carding people at bathrooms to see what biological sex they were or whatever, and like the left made this huge deal out of it, trying to say that Trump didn't stop them on a federal level. But the thing is, he didn't stop them. Like, I'm sure if he wanted to like flex his might from, you know, as the federal government, if he wasn't busy, which he was, if he didn't have anything better to do that week, you know, like, because that would take a little bit of time and energy to figure out how exactly they were going to stop a state from doing this. If he decided that he wanted to absolutely stop them from doing that, maybe he could have, but he didn't. It's true. But he did say that he did not agree with the law. Like, he did say that he thinks that trans people should be able to use whatever bathroom they present as, or what he gave a statement, like he mentioned it. So and the bathroom thing, like, sorry not sorry, but I don't really care all that much about it. Like, if there's actually people carting people at a door of the bathroom, that's absurd. It's just like, how long are they going to be able to hold, like, how long are they going to be able to hold up that in terms of enforcing it? But I'm kind of with like Blair White when she talks about trans bathrooms, in that she says, look, mostly, like, I've never had an issue using the women's bathroom, because look at me, you know, like, you use whatever bathroom you look like. And that's how things have always been. It's not that huge of a deal. We don't need the federal government even really thinking about it all that much. And that kind of rings true to what I'm thinking. Now, firing somebody from a job because they're gay, that is so much more significant. Like, so much more significant. And if that happens, then that is a case that can go up to the Supreme Court. And, you know, like, it would be absurd to, like, okay, maybe if somebody is like doing some freaky ass crap when they're, you know, on off of work, and that would be like debatable. But like, I just don't see the Supreme Court thinking that just because a man happens to be homosexual in his off time, it's fine for a company to fire him. Like, I think that the Supreme Court would rule against that. And if it's the case that some state wants to discriminate in that way, well, I say bring it, so that we can get a Supreme Court ruling that sets that precedent.
No, I definitely agree with that. Although I actually have used the opposite gender bathroom. I had a kidney infection and the women's bathroom was full, and I noticed there was nobody in the men's bathroom, so I just ran in there.
Yeah.
I don't think it's that big a deal. Like, people obviously the wrong gender, I'm sure, have done that.
Yeah. I've gone into the women's bathroom. There's this one club in Seattle. Hold on, I'm gonna take a shot of whiskey. There's this club in Seattle that I would go to with sometimes, because I knew people who DJ'd at it. And I went this one night, and my friend, who's this girl, she got blackout wasted. I think she made me buy her a shot, and we had already been drinking. And she has this tendency to just not pace herself when she drinks. And she seriously blacked out all like we were with this other girl, and the other girl and I were standing outside, just kind of, she said she was going to come back and meet us, and maybe we were smoking cigarettes or something. And then, you know, 30 minutes go by, and it's like, where's our other friend? Where is she? and we had to find her, and she was like lying down next to the dance floor, like maybe like behind the speaker or something. It was this like weird thing. And Plato Emerson, no, it doesn't happen all the time. Shut up, you're lying. It doesn't. People don't get fired for being gay all the time. That's absurd. It does not actually happen all the time. Like, people get, that's what gay guys say, and they're lying. I don't know that 100% for sure, but I don't believe it. It's I would really okay, if gay guys were getting fired for being gay all the time, wouldn't that occasionally make it into the gay blogs? All they ever talk about in the gay blogs is how gay white men are racist because of what they put on their Grindr profiles. And I feel like firing gay men for being gay is a little bit more important. So if they ever had that happen, like the supply and demand problem for bigotry towards gay men is pretty low. Like, most people don't really care a whole bunch. There's a meth crisis. They should talk about that. But like, it's not like people are actually okay. Plato Emerson is like the church ladyest church lady. It's so funny. And I mean, I appreciate having the gay church lady in the audience. It's actually good entertainment. Keep it up, kiddo. Keep it up, kiddo.
I don't know if it's an issue anymore, but when I was younger, there was a huge issue up here of teenagers coming out of the closet and being kicked out of their house. Like, that was a big thing. I don't know if it still is or not.
Yeah. I don't know at all. And what's interesting about that is that when you think about that notion, teenagers get kicked out of the house by their parents, but isn't that always technically illegal? Like, aren't you like never supposed to do that, no matter who you are exactly?
I think you can kick somebody out as young as 16.
Oh,
I think so, because you can be emancipated at 16.
Yeah. Plato Emerson, no, the meth crisis has not plagued the community for decades. That's how old you are. That's how out of touch you are with gay reality. 10 years ago, there was no meth crisis, period. It was completely uncool to do meth. You never met anybody in the gay community that did meth 10 years ago. People would do coke, yeah, but you wouldn't even find anybody that would do like ecstasy in 2008. There was a vibrant like dance music culture. You could find gay rock shows, like, or not so much rock shows, but rock nights. You could anything and everything that you could imagine in terms of gay culture was happening 10 years ago, and there wasn't this big like crystal meth scourge. And if you ever met some guy that you knew who had even done crystal meth ever, like had been into it, you'd be like, oh, damaged goods. And now it's this thing where you go on Grindr and people are, they say looking to party with a capital T, and the T stands for Tina, and Tina is slang for crystal meth. It is a problem. I have well over 1,000 friends on Facebook in all sorts of cities all over the world, and they all say, yeah, when did this meth thing, and it's a thing that happened within the last 4 years, especially over the last 2 years. And everybody's like, yeah, it's crazy. What's going on? And no one's talking about it. This is not a consistent trend. It comes and goes. Don't lie. Don't talk about things that you don't know nothing about. Okay? You don't know nothing. And then, yeah, 20 years ago. I know 20 years ago. 20 years ago was the last time it was real. 20 years ago, back when you were what, 40? Go away.
Well, like, I'm bi, so I used to be all involved in the scene and whatnot, but I got with my current husband 7 years ago, so I've been a little bit out of the loop since then. Well, not just current, but he is my husband, so.
Yeah.
No, I used to do the protests and the rallies and stuff to try and get gay marriage, but I didn't really think there was, and the gay homelessness problem up here. Like I said, it was mostly a teen thing, but I don't know if any of those are like still issues anymore.
Yeah, Yeah, no, it's a thing. The thing is that like meth 10 years ago, it wasn't a huge thing. There was definitely okay, this is what I would say about the whole meth crisis and STD crisis and all that stuff and how it relates to the gay male community. Um I haven't been alive for okay, and meth only really became popular in the 1990s. Like, if I think it existed technically since World War II. Was like I think Hitler invented it, or his little laboratory people invented it. I think that's right. I don't remember exactly, but it was some war thing is where it came from. But it didn't become a popular recreational drug and really until the 1990s, and it became very very big in the gay scene certainly by the end of the 1990s, and and it had a presence in gay party life through the early to mid 2000s. It existed, but it was separate from the general gay population, because as the early 2000s progressed into the mid 2000s in big cities, like more and more gay guys dropped out of that type of partying life and started just being more and more like general hipsters and wearing skinny jeans and having MySpace hair and that kind of a thing. And then there was like the circuit party guys, and the circuit party guys were very different than the other guys, and the circuit party guys were less and less popular. By the mid 2000s, less guys were actually circuit party guys and more guys were not circuit party guys. That's how things were. And I remember it very, very clearly because I was there. I actually, like it was this thing where it was like, oh my God, circuit party guys, you still exist? That's totally embarrassing. Now, granted, those guys never really gave up on meth. Sure. And and so there was kind of like this big problem with that. But by the end of the 2000s, there was this big network of what's the word, nonprofits and charities that were based around dealing with meth. And there was in San Francisco in particular, which I lived in, I moved to San Francisco in 2007, and there was still this charity, and I think this charity technically still exists, but it actually had a presence in San Francisco. Maybe it still does. It's called tweaker.org. Tweaker.org. Seriously. Like if you want to talk about like the craziest nonprofits that exist, tweaker.org, and this is probably funded by the Democrats. Like this probably somehow comes from people talk about these guys like Scott Wiener, who's the Democratic, maybe he's like a Congress representative from San Francisco, and he's this really nasty gay guy. He is so gross. And he's involved in all of the gay politicking in San Francisco. And he probably has a good relationship with tweaker.org. I'm just going to guess. I don't know. But he probably doesn't hate tweaker.org, and they probably don't hate Scott Wiener.
So what is that? Like, what is it? Is it supposed to help people who tweak, or is it supposed to like bring them together? What is that?
Good question. Thank you for just grounding me in that rant. Because hold on, let me take a shot of whiskey, because I have to process how I even answer that question, because it's a good question. It's so absurd is the thing. Think like, yeah, what is tweaker.org? What does it do? So tweaker.org is really, really strange. It's the stated purpose of it is that it is a harm reduction nonprofit. So what they supposedly do that's supposed to help gay men is they offer okay, they pass out little packages to you. They put little packages at like clubs and bathhouses that have, you know, what's it called? Lube and uh what's condoms and lube. And then they also the other thing that they do is, I guess, a little bit of education or something, but I don't know how much education they actually really do. The other thing that I remember, this, and I actually have this in one of my videos, and that I absolutely, this is my favorite thing in the world, because when I moved to San Francisco, this was still up, and it's so hilarious. Like, this is, so you go to the Castro neighborhood, which is like the gayest neighborhood in San Francisco. And granted, all of San Francisco is kind of a gay neighborhood. Like,
but that's where all the rich gay guys hang out, right?
Not necessarily, but that's where they all own houses.
Because I heard that's like one of the more expensive gay neighborhoods because of like history and things like that.
Yeah, that's where Harvey Milk set up shop. Like in the 1970s or like the 60s, 70s, I think that Polk Street was the gayest place, and then Harvey Milk decided that Castro neighborhood should be the more gay place, so everybody kind of moved up there through the 70s due to his lead. And in the Castro, they had this was so good. This was so good. They had a sign that said, it was with a bunch of shirtless guys, and I have a photo of this, and I think it's in the video about prep that I did. I'm not entirely sure. It might be some other video, but I could show this video again. Look up tweaker.org, and the caption is, "Hot sex without crystal? Hell yes!" And I don't know what profound message they were trying to send to guys, because, you know, it's the idea is like, hey, it's supposed to be a reminder saying, hey, you can still have hot sex without crystal, just so you know. But to me, that's looking like they're trying to advertise meth. Like, hey, just so you know, sex must be really, really hot on crystal, apparently, because some guys don't even want to have sex without it. And I didn't even know that. Like, I remember walking by that sign when I was, because I've never been into, like, I never got into meth. Like, I've done like every drug that you can possibly imagine, maybe some hundreds of times, but I've, you know, never done meth, really. Can't say I've never. Well, we're not gonna.
A message like that kind of makes me think you can show someone you love them without fisting.
Something like that, or
just kind of absurd.
Yeah, it's like, just so you know, you don't have to fist to be in love. Really? Okay. Like, and so it looks like it looks to me like some sort of a, like, don't think of an elephant type of suggestion to me. Like, it's like advertising meth is, and so they'll claim that it's harm reduction, and that really they're trying to encourage guys to do less crystal meth and have less unprotected sex. But they've been known, like, one of the things that I remember about them is that they didn't make their own condoms. I don't think. Maybe they did. I don't think I don't explicitly remember them having condoms that had the little, like, tweaker.org logo on them. I just don't remember that. But they were very big on making small one-serving lubricant packages that had the tweaker.org logo written on them, because I had a lot of them. Like, I remember having a lot of little, like, tweaker.org, because lube is more of a valuable commodity than condoms. Like, it's easy to get condoms, it's kind of hard to get lube, you know. And so I always had all these little, like, tweaker.org one serving lube packets. And I remember talking to somebody that I knew that worked for nonprofits, and he was like, I was like, yeah, I don't know if this tweaker.org organization is, like, actually helping anybody. Like, what is the purpose of putting this notion of crystal meth into people's head actually, like, what's the purpose of that? And he's like, well, it's harm reduction. And I'm like, well, yeah, it just seems kind of weird to me. I don't know. Seems kind of weird. And he was like, yeah, well, it's good. I'm like, well, but where's the condoms? It's just lube, dude. It's just, and he's like, well, yeah, but like, if you don't have lube, you're more likely to get AIDS because there's going to be cuts and stuff. And I'm like, okay, dude, I don't know. Like, I don't know, dude. And so yeah.
Trying it without lube at all sounds very unpleasant to me.
Yeah. Well, there's always spit.
I remember reading an erotica where somebody like used margarine, and I'm like, yeah, that sounds kind of messy.
Yeah. So I for the record, Plato Emerson asks, why do you think that there has been a resurgence in meth use in the gay community? I'm not entirely sure. I have to wonder, like, there has to be a bunch of home labs, like people who are making meth in a bathtub or something in an urban center. But there has to be some sort of manufacturing thing going on that I don't really know about. But to be perfectly truthful, the conclusion that I always come to is that gay men have been so incredibly demonized and shamed over the past 4 years, especially from within our own communities. Like it became the mainstream narrative within LGBT media, which granted has been completely taken over by feminist media. It's the same, it's one and the same now. Like LGBT media is just feminist media, really. It's usually written by gay men, but they're all feminist gay men. And the message is pretty unanimous. It's just, oh, check your male privilege, stop being racist. You should date men of color, except for don't date them too much. And if you do, then you're sexualizing them for their race. That's bad. And for the record, you should be open to having sex with women with people with vaginas, because trans men are men too. And also, you have nothing to complain about. So blah, 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 blah. And that's all we ever hear. And the bars that we used to enjoy, that's the general attitude at them. Like I've literally been, like, when I describe this reality, I imagine that there's certain people who are disconnected from gay reality that think that I'm just exaggerating and I'm just whining. But I remember probably about 4 or 5 years ago, there was this crazy girl and this is not just like some outlier. I mean, granted, this was a particularly crazy incident. Sure. Like, this was a very crazy specific thing that did happen, but this kind of thing was not unheard of. And it happened more and more and more, which was that there was this trans girl who had her little crew of like 2 or 3 other trans girl friends who decided that they were like into leather. Like, they were the leather trans girls. So they would go to the like gay male leather bars in the Soma district. South of Market is what it's short for in San Francisco, which is kind of like the gay bar leather district. And they would go to those places and they would be in this group of like, 3 trans girls. And like, I don't care. I don't give a crap. Like, as far as I knew, they were cool enough. Like, I didn't even really think about it, right? But apparently they got into like repeated conflicts. This one in particular, that everybody knew. And I'll call this girl out by name. Her name was Lily, and everybody knew that Lily was a problem. She was always starting drama. And so one time I went by this bar called, I believe it was the Hole in the Wall. We used to like to call it the Hoe in the Stall. And I went in there and Lily was there with 2 or 3 friends, and they were handing out flyers about how the Hole in the Wall was allegedly a transphobic, misogynist bar. And according to her, the gay men had physically assaulted her, and they had also sexually assaulted her. And she was handing out flyers to try to like get people to boycott it. And everybody was ignoring her. Like everybody was like, okay, this little crew of trans girls is crazy. Nobody really cared about it. Except for me, I was interested. And so I went up and I talked to her and I'm like, so what happened? Like, what's the deal? And she's like, oh my God, there's these guys and they, they're giving me all this crap. And they were like being really hostile. And then they assaulted me and they also sexually assaulted me. And I'm like, wait, so what's this all about? And she's like, well, they don't like the fact that I'm trans and I'm here. They think that I'm invading upon their space and they want it to be for men. And I think that I have the right to be here. And I'm like, well, yeah, I mean, yeah, you have the right to be here. Sure. I don't have a problem with you being here. And she's like, well, some people do. And they assaulted me. And then they also sexually assaulted me. And I was like, wait. Back up a second. Did they assault you or did they sexually assault you? And she was like, both. And I'm like, honey, that's a little, okay. Okay. Thanks for telling me. And that was where I knew that she was full of crap. Because it's like, okay, you don't assault someone. Like, you don't like she was trying to say that they hated her. And so she was like, they were like, I don't know, pushing her and shoving her. And then they were also sexually assaulting her at the same time. That just doesn't make sense. Like that's so non-believable. You know what I mean?
I've heard some feminists say calling them a cunt is sexual assault. So.
Oh yeah. Well, they also say that gay men are constantly groping them, which is not true. Like it's just like what they're. I would say probably 9 times out of 10 or 99 times out of 100, they get into an argument with a gay guy at a gay bar because the gay guy is not putting up with their like entitled feminist crap. And then they decide that they, it's like, well, we better tell the teacher because all feminists are authoritarians. Like the feminist mentality is based around authoritarianism. You can't be a feminist without believing that somehow you are lobbying for special protections and entitlements for female or femme-ish creatures that the big strong men are going to enforce for you if you whine enough. Like that's what feminism is based around, And
I don't understand how lesbians got into a higher arc of like oppression than gay men, because from what I can tell, most people, like there's a lot of people who still hate gay men, but not many people hate lesbians.
Oh yeah, and it's always been that way. It's been that way since as long as I was out of the closet. Yeah. Yeah, it's silly. It's totally silly in that way. So, when I talk about I don't remember how I got down this track of talking about
it started with meth.
Yeah, I remember somehow I was talking about meth, 15 minutes ago. but
Oh, since we were originally talking about the election, was there any particular issues or state things that you were like the reason you went out to vote today? What was your reason?
I wanted to vote for libertarians, and then it turned out that I couldn't because there was no libertarians in my district, and I thought that there would be, and so I just didn't vote at all. So wait, hold on. Plato Emerson said, but they don't have male privilege. So Plato, I hope that you're being sarcastic when you say, do you actually think that male privilege is a thing? I mean, you're such a gay church lady. Maybe you actually, you're very disconnected from reality. I'm going to go grab a beer. Okay, he is joking. Thank God. Maybe there's salvaging for, I'll pray for you, Plato. I'll pray for you. Hold on. I'm going to go grab a beer. All right, I'm back. So
I was going to entertain your chat, but I couldn't think of anything, so there was an awkward silence the whole time you were gone.
it's cool. It's cool. So yeah, like, by the way, there's a 55 people watching, not a single super chat. What's going on, guys? Come on, come on. Like, I will cater to any question that you ask of me or anything. I'm honestly feeling quite good about what is happening at this moment. So I will cater. So I will.
Oh, one thing that I think's kind of bad when it comes to the whole gay right things for my state is, did you see the campaigns against trans people we actually did have up here? Like, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, because they were actually like going viral because everyone's like, Alaska, what the hell is wrong with you? No, like, there's these campaigns saying that if you vote for an update in discrimination laws, men dressed as women can work at your preschools and things. And they like had a guy who was just dressed as a trans woman, and I'm like, oh, Alaska, what is wrong with you?
Okay, so on the one hand, yeah, there is a lot of very anti-trans people that take advantage of these kind of like silly notions that don't reflect what we've known trans people to be in years past. Except for, on the other hand, there are these people that are like that. Like, I hate to say it. Like, I really
like a burly dude with like hairy legs, and he was wearing a floral dress. That was what the ads were.
Well, no, because there are people that are like that. So the thing is, like, there's I hate, okay, and Taily Tail said, making it hail on Prince. Thank you very much for your super chat. I don't really have anything to say about that. That was just sort of you saying, I'm going to give you some money because reasons, and I will take it. No, so the mess up thing is that, like, I wanted to be that guy. Like, if you were to talk to me 8 years ago, back when I was, going to the trans march, but not going to the pride march because the pride march had too many, it was all corporate and straight people and blah, 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 blah. And then the trans march only had, 800 people at it. And then you would all hang out in the park right after it was done. And there would be trans people walking around with their tops off. And it was everyone was feeling comfortable around each other. And I was like, yeah, I'm an ally. I'm a cis ally. Just for the record, I love my trans people. That was a fun time. That was like a fun little period. And I would talk to trans people and they'd be like, yeah, I didn't want to be this way. And a lot of them were actually technically intersex. Like, they had hormonal imbalances that ended up being diagnosed, and they were males that always felt slightly more like a woman, and then it ended up getting to be a diagnosed thing, and they decided that they might as well go on estrogen and see what that's like, but they didn't necessarily get surgeries and blah, 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 blah. And they had this like complicated story. And I was like, oh, that's totally fine. And, like, you mostly look like a woman. You can tell you're a man, but I get it. Like, blah, 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 blah. But then by around 2014 or so, like 4 years later, the trans trender phenomenon took off in the San Francisco Bay Area, and there was these people that were just, that store at the mall, Claire's.
Yeah, I like getting earrings there.
Yeah, no, it would just be some dude put on a mini skirt, go to Claire's, grab some crap, and then he's trans supposedly, and it's like, nuh-uh, no. And they were jerks too. They weren't nice. Like, they were weird. And then it was like, okay, if there's too many of these guys around, I can understand why people don't want these guys in the bathroom with their kids. Like, you're not trans, and it's weird. And like, maybe you're not a pedophile, but if you're passing for trans, supposedly, and you're trying to, convince everybody that a trans person looks like you, then I can absolutely understand why parents are hesitant about the transgender phenomenon. And that was about 4 years ago. Well, it only got worse and worse and worse by 2016. And so, like, I'm not saying that they should have fearmongered in the way that they did, but I am going to say that it was really, really easy to fearmonger because everyone has YouTube, like everyone can find these people talking about they're trans, but they're kind of not. So, oh, Adrian Crenshaw is saying something. I'm going to open my beer because I have my little opener. He says, many people who list trans in their Twitter profile also list being a communist. Why the intersection seems like it should be unrelated. Actually, Adrian Crenshaw, that's an interesting point to bring up. So here's the thing. Communism died in the 1950s, officially. That is the death of communism as a philosophical notion. Nobody that actually knew anything about economics or anything, government, blah, 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 actually really, really, really believed in communism past the 1950s. The only people that did were people that believe very, very, very strongly in identity politics and thinking that the world is unfair for their identity or whatever. And they kind of thought that maybe the world should be forced to be fair for that one specific identity that they were very attached to. And for whatever reason, well, not for whatever reason, it's actually a pretty logical reason why this happened, is that the feminists managed to get to shoehorn themselves into academia by fighting for the rights to have women's studies departments, which were really just feminist departments, and they were headed the intellectual and philosophical thought that held the women's studies departments together was powered by Marxists, was powered by female Marxists. And the reason why that happened, the first women's studies department was founded in 1970. And the United States communists had to go underground during the 1950s, though they didn't stop being communists. They just had to stop saying that they were communists. And they gravitated towards civil rights causes. Many of them gravitated towards the women's movement. And honestly, I don't think that there's any definitive answer for why gender studies, aka women's studies, aka feminist studies, became the predominant stronghold of neo-Marxist thought in academia. Like, I don't think that anybody can say 100% for certain why it was that the gender studies departments became the stronghold of that type of thought. I would say that the undeniable answer, like just logically, like why this would happen, is simply that people don't really suspect women of being a threat that much. Like, people thought, oh, they're just women, let them do whatever they want with their little women's studies department, ha 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 ha. And they were undetected by the authorities. And so since 1970 or so, the gender studies departments grew and grew and grew and grew into what they actually were. And so one of the things about the Marxist feminists is that there is a very, very long tradition dating back to Marx and Engels. Engels, especially, who was the co-author of the Communist Manifesto, who was like the not so smart guy that worked with Karl Marx. He wrote a book called Origins of the Family, Private Property, and the State. And he was very, very big on trying to equalize the sexes between each other. trying to make women and men equal in the labor force and blah 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 blah, as if that's possible, which it's not. But he tried to sort of do that. That was his shtick. That's like what set him apart from Marx. And he wrote that book in the late 1800s, and the communists of the 1900s, the women especially, looked up to him a lot and cited his stuff in order to get their point across, to get people to listen to them. And by the time that they had to go underground and then the new feminists came up, they were really only talking about women's issues. They were only talking about women's issues. They weren't talking about Marxism, because you weren't allowed to talk about Marxism, but you were allowed to talk about identity politics. So it was like you took the identity politics part from Marxism, which was there. Like there was the parts about how women were oppressed by men because of marriage. Like that was in the Marxist philosophy. Now, granted, it was through Engels, but it was there. Well, you take all the Marx out and you keep in the like gender stuff, and that's where the women's liberation movement kind of came from. And it just kind of grew and grew and grew and grew. So it had roots in the Communist Party, but it was more powered by this stupid gender crap that Frederick Engels wrote. And one of the things that they thought was that in the future there would be no distinction between male and female would be completely equal, and everybody would be genderless drones or something. Like they kind of thought that, which is really twisted and weird. If you think about it, it's like, no, that's never going to happen.
I have an interesting question for you. Do you actually think?
So I'm almost done with this. So that's how it got to be the point where trans and communists overlap. Because of this long history with this guy, Robert Engels, is the Frederick Engels. Frederick Engels, look into him. He was a weirdo. Okay, so what's your question? And Octavio Banach said, read The Black Candle by Emily Murphy.
I just have a question, like in general, do you actually think women were historically oppressed? Because that seems to be an assumption a lot of people go on.
No, I don't. I think that Jordan Peterson always gives a good answer to this kind of question when people say, like, were women oppressed? And he says, I think that existence and life was fundamentally cruel and difficult for both men and women in centuries past, to the point where it's not worth trying to compare it to today. But what I will say is this. I think that there's probably a more strong, and I would say like a 75%, like this will be what I would guess in favor of this way of viewing history and the world, that systemically, like if we're going to go by how government and monarchies and everything like that, tribes even treated men and women at a systemic level, women have actually always been treated better. Like I am a Karen Strawn type MRA in that way. And I will say that they have been treated better systemically. But
if we look at all of history, I'd agree, but I'd say there's definite time points where I'd say women definitely had the short end of the stick, sort of like in the Victorian era, and there's certain other eras that could see that, but the Victorian era was one of the most oppressive eras in general. But I think you're right. Systemically, if you look throughout history, women have more been coddled and protected. Well, male disposability was even more prevalent in more of historical societies.
Yeah, that's about what I would think, and I would like to look at why you think that from the Victorian era, because I'm no expert in the Victorian era, but what I like to say, I have this boiled down to a pretty simple line, which is that women's freedoms have often been restricted, but they are more than compensated for in protection and benefits that they are provided by the male half of the population. So, yes, you are not, like, women have not always been free to do everything that they might want to do, but ultimately, the care that they receive from the male half of the population kind of more than makes up for that. You know, like the fact that men go to fight wars for them, to rescue them from natural disasters, all those type of things. I think that that's, really kind of more than an, like, if you really were to like boil it down, which would you prefer? For the most part, you would probably want to take the female end of the bargain if you could. But there's also a very specific reason for that, which is that females have to carry children. And carrying children is a really, really big deal. And it's only been within the past 2 centuries, and really even probably the last 150 years, that women weren't frequently dying in childbirth. You know? So, like, of course, people took extra care for women. That's just logical. And that's just how things are. But when we look at things in the current year, it's like, okay, women aren't dying in childbirth all the time. We don't have to raise women with this, like, 10 extra advantages that they get since birth, like the feminist system that we have now is completely absurd. It's based on things that just don't make sense anymore in any way. There's no justifying it. So that's but a lot of that has to do with just medical technology, is what I would say.
If you want to know why I think women were oppressed during the Victorian era, it would have been the start of the Industrial Revolution. So more and more women were taking on jobs and being in more hazardous roles, but still being treated with the sort of kid gloves and being sort of infantilized. So they were oppressed a lot financially, and usually their husbands could take over their money. For the first time, we had women writers out in the open, but there's been cases of men being able to basically swindle them, and there's still arranged marriages. As well as during that time, they would punish women for infidelity very harshly, as in your children and the women would actually be able to be disowned by the father, whether or not they know whether the father was biologically related or not, while men weren't really being punished at all for such things. So the Victorian era was an oppressive time for all involved, especially when it came to child labor and such. But I think women did get a bit of the short end of the stick when it comes to that particular time period.
Wait, okay. Say that as, like, what are the key factors again, just to boil it down, that were
women were working in more jobs than they were in the past, but their finances belonged to their husbands. Even if their husbands didn't live in the household. Women were being a lot more punished for infidelity, which men were not being punished, and not in the same respect. Okay. If a woman was caught cheating, her and all of her children could be thrown out of the house, and they'd lose their title, name, and property.
Okay. Yeah. That's crappy. What the funny thing is, I don't actually know the dates of the Victorian era. When was that? That would be the 1800s sometime. I know that.
Yeah, it would have been the 18th. I think most people just consider like 1800 to like 1900, but I think that there is a specific set of dates, but I'd have to look that up. But I know it's from the early 1800s to the dawn of the 1900s.
I just remember it from what the costumes were like in Doctor Who from those episodes.
A lot of the problems I said were actually very early Victorian era stuff, because a lot of it even was brought to light in the Victorian era, and a lot of it was solved like still within that time period. But I'd say that was a pretty crummy time period for anyone to live, because the Victorian era actually, since it was the dawn of the Industrial Revolution, had one of the biggest disparities between the wealthy and the poor.
Yeah, yeah, because like with gigantic world society changing technology comes a dramatic shift in how the laws should work according to all of that stuff. It'll be interesting to look into the male disposability of those of that time and how it increased. But I mean, I can definitely. But what you're saying, it does sound like there was a definite argument to be made for the actual legal rights of women. Yeah. No, it could very well be. It could very well be like this is the first time that women were allowed to sort of potentially be a part of the workforce in the same way that men were, but they had no protections at all because of something like that. Yeah, something. Do you see what I'm saying?
But I will agree that time periods before that were easier for women, but that does kind of, it was actually, it's funny that you mentioned Karen Strom because she even mentioned the fact that a lot of the stuff that feminists argued in the early 1900s was oppressions that were relatively new to them from the Victorian era.
Okay. Yeah. I'm not like a super great historian. I'm definitely not. Like that's absolutely the my knowledge in terms of feminist history comes from the dawn of like actual American feminism. But really only like right before World War II was when what I've really started to like look at, and I want to look at more. But that's really what I've looked at. What I know very well is stuff that's happened largely since the second wave, which I could also know better. And yeah, but everything since the 90s, I know probably better than anybody that we know on YouTube. I shouldn't have just said that. Yeah, I shouldn't have just said that. But I do. Like I mean I'm very very familiar with 90s and beyond feminism because I grew up in Seattle and my sisters and my mom in the 90s were feminists in Seattle, which is like uh, like talk about being in the belly of the beast, so
Oh, I've just actually got a weird fascination with ancient history. Well, not just ancient, but like up into when it gets to modern age, I sort of lose interest. I'm weird like that.
Yeah, see, for me, it's like this kind of thing where I kind of like okay, I can study history and it can become really really fascinating and like oh my god, like I will watch some Game of Thrones and I will love it. Like I will, and I wish that there was like more good programming that was like certain things and blah 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 blah. But I think that I shine as an individual in terms of like my work and like me telling stories and like trying to like really communicate something unique is things that I can actually remember for myself. And that's what like every time I make a video that's about my understanding of the left and my understanding of feminists based largely upon me actually knowing these people, it always gets a really, really good response. And that's sort of where my head is as an individual. So, yeah.
I'm actually kind of glad you're more of a Karen Strom type MRA because I actually get into arguments with a lot of other anti-feminists and MRA types that think that women were oppressed, but they're not as much anymore because I kind of have to agree with you that I don't think women were ever quote unquote oppressed. I think they just had different roles and values in society, historically speaking.
Yeah, I don't think that women were. I just don't think that that kind of thing applied like prior to maybe the Industrial Revolution or something. Like, I don't think that this notion of are women or it's like, okay, everybody's oppressed. It's like, it would be like trying to say like let's say all you got is an inner tube and you're trapped on the ocean and there's two of you. Like, which one is oppressed while you're both trying to like hang on to that inner tube and not fall into the water. It's like, okay, neither of us are oppressed. We're trying to hang on for dear life. You know, like that's how it is. I'm not going to shove you off so that you can drown. You know, like necessarily, probably like that's it. Just maybe that's not the best metaphor in the world, but and okay, and then the inner tube evolves into a life boat, and except for like one group could maybe only sit in the back of the lifeboat or whatever. That would be the Industrial Revolution or something. I don't really know, but like the dramatic majority of human history has it's things have coexisted, and like, okay, yes, men had the brunt of dealing with the hard things like war and dealing with, I don't know, bears attacking the tribe or whatever, you know, like angry bears. But like at the same time, women had to carry children back before medical technology. So you can't say that women had this like super better end of the deal, because that's just not true. Like that would have been horrible. Like, can you imagine how scary it would be to have to give birth in like the Stone Ages?
Yeah, that sounds pretty horrible. What's funny is my mom tried to tell me that women were oppressed because when she was going to college in the 70s, they told her she didn't need these science classes. And I'm like, well, were you going for a science degree? And she's like, no, a writing degree, but I wanted to take those classes anyways, and they wouldn't let me. And it was because I'm a woman. I'm like, oh, mother. That's kind of how I feel about a lot of women who complain they're oppressed. Is I'm like, are you sure it's because you're a woman, or it's because you're going for a writing degree and you want to take science classes that you don't need?
Yeah. But yeah. I just, this notion of oppression and blah 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 blah. I mean, it has gotten legitimately really bad in terms of men being like actively oppressed by the system in the current year. Like there's no ifs and or buts about it. Like men are oppressed in the Western world, and men don't even like using the word oppressed because they don't like admitting to weakness or sounding a certain way or whatever. But like there's like a list of like, you know, how like homeless shelters, like not even like barring aside abuse shelters for male victims, which granted I can understand why maybe there's not that many abuse shelters, but like there's not even gender exclusive male homeless shelters. Yeah, there's homeless shelters for men and women, sort of sometimes, but there's a lot. It's like and like I understand how that must be hard. Like I absolutely understand that if you're a city organizer, that it would be really, really hard to build a homeless shelter that's only for men, because homeless men tend to be kind of crazy and violent. And I mean, maybe not all of them, maybe not even most of them, but like if even 10% of like if you have 100 beds and 10% have a tendency to be crazy and violent, that's a lot of problems. You know, like that's a lot of problems for the other dudes. And the women aren't going to be all that bad. And like there's like no mental health care for men, gender specific mental health care for men. Like you're very, very lucky if you find a private practice that caters to men at all, anywhere. And 78% of suicide is male. And then, of course, obviously, only 41% of university enrollment is male. And feminists won't even let men have male clubs on university campuses. That's absolutely absurd and unacceptable. Like that's completely unacceptable. There's like if we're gonna start with curing the imbalance of the gender disparity that men are actually absolutely suffering under. We need to start with the education system just because it's easy enough to change and it's so wrong right now. And it's something that's affected me as an individual. You know, I've never been homeless. I've never attempted suicide. I have never these other things. Like I've never been to family court, blah 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 blah. But I
Oh, that was my baby one. What's funny you say that is that I've actually been homeless and attempted suicide.
uh-huh. Well, I'm fortunate enough.
You're all privileged.
Yeah.
You have the non-suicidal privilege.
But I have been in a college that was absolutely it was this totally feministy far leftist school place. Like it was a thing. And there was very little or no encouragement for males just because we were males. Of course, like we were actually in a lot of ways discouraged. And if anyone wants to ever know more about that, I have a video called My Experience at the Feminist Theater Retreat, which is a feminist theater retreat that I went on right after college, right after I graduated with an advanced playwriting degree. I didn't know it was like a retreat for women. They didn't tell me that it was. And I went there thinking that I was going to have fun and rewrite my play, but it turns out that I was a second-class citizen, both as a student and as a male. And it was a problem. And man, college these days is even worse. I graduated in 2004. But these days, it's even worse. Young men are treated like garbage on university campuses. And that can change easily because it's a university. Universities can change very easily. It's pliable. Like, yeah, I understand it's hard to change homeless shelters so that homeless men are treated well because it's going to be hard to do that. I understand. But like university boys treating young men like 18 to 22 just with like dignity, that's not hard to do at all. And for the record, in case you're just now tuning in, I am paying attention to the chat. I know I almost never do, but I am paying attention to the chat. So if you want to give me a super chat, I will absolutely discuss whatever you mentioned to me. So yeah. Just to bring it back to the actual stated topic of this video, Blue Grave. I just want to remind everybody that the hopes and the dreams of leftists died tonight. And I'll say that, and I will say it because of this. This is why the hopes and the dreams of leftists died tonight. There's about 3 factors. I might forget them all. But first one is that apparently moderate Democrats did pretty well. You know, like not crazy far leftist wackos. Apparently, maybe that's just maybe I'll have to like re-examine the thing. But secondly is that the Democrats took the House, right? Taking the House will mean to them that the elections aren't rigged. And Democrats love to think that the elections are rigged. Democrats and leftists love thinking that the only reason Republicans ever win anything is because of gerrymandering, or because, yeah, gerrymandering is the big one that they all like to point out. I don't know what else. But yeah, but the Democrats did take the House, but they didn't take the Senate. They lost the Senate. They are still the underdogs in the Senate, which is good because that's showing them that, you know, because the Senate is ultimately more representative of how a presidential election will look because of, you know, there's not that many senators. There's way more Congress people. And it's showing them that, like, yeah, if there was an election this year, Trump would be reelected. So this notion that the Trump election was a fluke and that it only happened as an accident, that's just not true. And you're going to have to accept that. And they are going to have to realize that. And that's good for them. That's good for their twisted little spirits. Like, they don't get to think to them, they don't get to rationalize it thinking that Trump loaded the deck to keep himself with a massive Senate and Congress majority. That's not true. And they also don't get to tell themselves that secretly everybody hates Trump and that 2016 was a fluke, because it wasn't. He did maintain the Senate. So that's
I mostly hear Democrats saying that Trump got into office because all of a sudden America's racist.
Yeah. They do say that.
That's what I hear up here most of the time, is they say Trump got into office because America's finally showing its racism.
Yeah, they decided to like wait 8 years.
Yeah, like we weren't. Well, actually, they even argued that we were racist with Obama. There was like some sort of article about why we voted for Obama, and then a lot of Obama voters voted for Trump. It's because they voted for Obama to prove they weren't racist, but that shows that they are racist.
Oh God. It's the just because you're not racist doesn't mean you're not racist argument. Basically, I had been saying that for a really, really long time. Like I had been saying that as a joke. This, just because you're not racist doesn't mean you're not racist. And then apparently Everyday Feminism actually came out with an article that said that. Just because you're not racist doesn't mean you're not racist, which is kind of amazing. You know, I mean, like it's kind of awesome that they would actually say that. Because that's how they acted.
You voted for Obama to show that to say to yourself that you're not racist, but you voted for Trump because you really are racist.
Yeah, it's so absurd. No, and the mess up thing is that voting for Obama was like actually the racist thing to do. Like it was because he was an affirmative action hire. Nobody knew who he was, and he was horrifically incompetent. And he ran our economy into the ground even worse than it was already going. Legalized the usage of propaganda on the American people so that he could lie about it, and started an entire war in Libya, and decided not to really tell anybody about it because he doesn't have to. Nobody's allowed to criticize him because everybody wants a black guy working on their team, right? That was the racist part about it. That was the racist part. The approval, not like positive treatment towards an individual based on their skin color is racism. And people need to realize that sooner than later. So Jables Boogly says, "Oh, hey, Prince." Hi, Jables Boogly. I remember your name, but I don't remember who you are exactly. Plato Emerson, shut up. The economy was not ever better under Obama's tenure. Look at the national debt. Google it. It never got better. It literally never got better at all. At all. It got worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. It got worse and worse. He's incompetent. It's not my chart. It's the Wikipedia chart, dumb fuck. I didn't have to like draw my own chart to show that Obama doubled the national debt. I don't see why these people are still like clinging to the notion that Obama improved the economy. For who? For who? For who? Oh, the people in the big cities that can't afford to like move into the luxury apartments and condominiums that they built. Oh yeah, you know why they can't afford to move into them? Because they're all owned by foreign investors, mainly Chinese investors, who don't care if the buildings end up turning a profit. Do you know why they don't care? Because they're hiding their money from their government. They want to put They want to put their money into buildings in the United States so that they don't have to pay taxes to the communist ass Chinese government. That's why there's all these buildings in urban meccas in the United States that are owned by Chinese businessmen, and not that many people move into them, and they keep dropping in value. And the Chinese investors don't really care. And then, oh, but no, the economy is doing good. I mean, there's all these tech jobs. Oh, yeah. Okay. Even the tech people, even people that I know personally, who make over probably $100,000 a year, still in student loan debt, and their loans have multiplied. It has increased since they've been making that amount of money. It's as if the places that hired them knew deliberately that they were going to hire these people, pay them a bunch of money, and their debts would be increasing and increasing and increasing, and they would not be able to pay them off. In fact, their debts would increase. And it would seem like, oh, well, this person's making 120 grand a year. Everything's good economy. No, but they're in $200,000 worth of debt. And that is a common story, a very common story with these young tech people. So you can say, oh, well, the economy is good. I mean, these people have jobs. Yeah, well, they can't afford a condo. They can't afford a condo. The national debt is higher than it's ever been. It doubled during Obama. What did Obama do?
He was really good at drone strikes.
Yeah.
Actually, it's really funny because I was thinking about the fact that Obama actually did export a lot of immigrants and did a lot of drone strikes and a lot of very questionable things. And luckily, like I said, I am on the left, and I've got a lot of friends who are on the left. And at least during his, I wasn't in that group of people who said you can't criticize him because you're, because that's racist. I actually at least hung out with the people who are like hardcore leftists who criticize everybody, because it seems like you have a bit of a distrust of the government, at least the people I hang out with. But I have to think that a lot of the stuff Obama did, if Trump did the same things, I wonder how many people would call these things racist.
Oh, yeah. Well, and it's funny because I don't think that anyone was even okay. No, I remember for a fact, because and here's another thing to keep in mind about me as an individual. When I talk about people talking about things, I'm not just talking about people that I know as an individual who are like my friends. When I say, oh, everyone's talking about this, and I'm referring to the people that I know, I'm referring largely to media workers. Like, I'm referring to people that write for blogs and are producers for like maybe cable television. I don't exactly know what they are, but I went to school in New York City, and I know all these people that work in media. That's just what my life is like. I know these stupid liberal media, check mark on Twitter motherfuckers. That's like who my social scene became. So like these people, that crowd of people in 2008, and remember, I graduated in 2004, so I already knew all those people, and they all went on to go on to jobs that working in the media, blah 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 blah. Nobody was talking about racism in 2008. In 2008, when Obama got elected, nobody was like talking about racism at all. Like, there was edgelordy humor, like Sarah Silverman, who made these really edgelordy racist jokes frequently. And that's, what things were like. And then this black guy was running, and everyone was like, cool, let's vote for the black guy because he's progressive. And we would like to do that, I guess. But it wasn't like this overwhelming thing that like everybody was talking about race all day, every day. That was just sort of the thing that pushed it over the edge. Like a Democrat was going to win. And then it was kind of like, well, the woman or the black guy? How about the black guy? Because we don't really like Hillary Clinton anyway. But it might as well have gone to the woman if she was cooler. It's like, to be honest, that's sort of what the attitude was. And then you know, around 2012, about halfway through his administration, that's when everybody started talking about race all the time. But prior to that, it was like, oh, progress, cool. We have a black guy. That's cool.
Do you think it was the Obama era that brought in the I don't know if there's been a change to the left, but to me, there's been a major change. Like, because, like I said, I live in the middle of nowhere, so I only sort of interact with the world through my computer, because not much of this stuff actually happens in my real life. But from my perspective, there's been a huge change in the left with the whole policing people and everyone's sexist, everyone's racist. Because I don't remember this just a few years back. Do you think it is like Obama's era that brought this about?
Yeah, it is. It absolutely is. And this is how it was. Obama was horribly incompetent economically. He took over a failing economy, right? You know, like there was the housing collapse. That was a really bad turn. But Obama is horrifically incompetent economically. Like he was an affirmative action hire, and more so, he's an affirmative action hire that has a background in Marxism. Like he has ties to like Marxist organizing and stuff. Like he was involved in this project called Acorn, which was this actual like Marxist group. And his teachers, and I think his parents were David Horowitz, who's a really great scholar, talks about Obama being believes Obama's a communist, and it does actually ring true. That seems very likely. In the way that Obama has came out and praised what's that fucking guy? Nelson Mandela in South Africa, who was the president of South Africa, the first black president of South Africa, who's an open communist. And Obama really liked that administration. There's all sorts of things about Obama where he's basically just a Marxist. And, you know, he did all these things trying to equalize the masses, wasn't really trying so much to stimulate the national economy, cared a lot more about, you know, making his base of his little intersectional base happy and everything. And when it was kind of come up time for him to get reelected, he didn't have anything to show to the nation for his presidency. We had this housing collapse, everything was bad, and right before the election, you know, the election came in November of 2012, but in, I believe, May of 2012, he legalized the usage of propaganda on the American people, so he could start lying about things. And that's actually technically never gone away. It's legal for the American for government officials in America, and this applies to all levels of government, like the federal government, state governments. Everybody can use propaganda now if they want to. They can just sort of lie to people. And he started doing that. And so I think he started lying about the economy, and then he started race baiting. And one of the things that's in this, like, you know, propaganda thing, it was the Smith-Mundt Act. Well, it's perfectly legal to make up hoaxes. So this whole thing about Sandy Hook that Alex Jones was talking about, legally, the American government could have paid for Sandy Hook. They could have sponsored Sandy Hook as a hoax for that to happen. Now, I don't even know anything about Sandy Hook. I'm not like, I'm not advocating that it was a hoax. Like, that is not my argument.
I don't believe it's a hoax, but I see what you're saying. I'm saying that it's not beyond the realm of possibilities.
I don't even know anything about it. I have a co-host on my stream, the Gay Triarchy, Spacepan, and he's actually really into saying that Sandy Hook is a hoax. Like, he likes to talk about it. But I'm like, dude, I don't even care. I don't even know what it really is. But that is a thing that is possible. And so all this identity politics stuff, I really think it was just a grand distraction from the fact that our economy got worse and worse. Everybody got more and more in student loan debt. Our urban meccas became massively unaffordable due to foreign investors buying up all the property that nobody could afford to move into, which they don't care about, and massive homelessness crisis, like in all of them. And Obama trying to say, oh yeah, well, white cops are assholes, like just to distract everybody. That's like honestly what I really think it is. Does that make sense?
Oh, that makes perfect sense. It was really weird how it came out of nowhere. Nobody was talking about racism really for a long time, but then I've noticed that everybody's talking about it. Like, it's crazy. It's crazy to see the change in some of my friends, even up here. I think we're just now getting the wave of it. So that's why, like, in my real life person, I'm like, what is going on? I don't understand, because only like this year or the year before did I actually start witnessing this stuff in real life.
Yeah, well, for me, it was about 2013. And it's never gone away, you know? And no, it's something that I have more to talk about. And you know, that project that you and I are working on,
Right.
don't you worry. I have plenty to say. Like it's
I'm actually really sad about, like, a couple of years ago I was working in a bakery, and then I made the joke that I'm Mexican, and somebody's like, "You're not Mexican." I'm like, "I am. My mom's white, my dad's Mexican. I just look white as hell because that's how the cards fell." And they're like, "Oh, well, at least you have white privilege." And my question was, "What's that?" And I've kind of missed those days. I really do.
Yeah, well, what is white privilege really? I know,
that was my first reaction to that. I'm like, "What's that?"
Well, and it is really hard to define. Hold on, I'm gonna put you on speaker so I can go grab another beer.
Hello, chat. I don't think I've ever had a cab stop when I called it on the street. I think I've only had a cab stop when I've called up a cab service. But then there's not many cabs around. So I don't really think that's applicable for white privilege. My cat's name's Cassie, Lynxie, and Philia.
All right, I'm back.
I was trying to talk to your chat.
Okay. So where's my super chats? Plato Emerson, give me some super chats. Come on. You waste so much of my time. Give me like $40. $40 or I'll never talk to you again.
So apparently white privilege is having cabs stop when you hail them. And I don't think I've ever had a cab stop when I've hailed them, like I told the chat.
Well, there definitely is, yeah, things like that are like little subtle things that like when I lived in Brooklyn, there was this place on the water. Okay, so do you know the landscape of New York City very well in any way?
I've never been to New York City. The only place I've ever been on the East Coast is Massachusetts.
Okay, so you know how there's like the Brooklyn Bridge? You probably heard of that.
I've seen New York on TV, so yes, I know of it.
Yeah, okay. So the thing is that New York City is composed of 5 different like sub-cities that they call boroughs, and the place with all the skyscrapers is Manhattan. That's like the center of it all, right? But Manhattan's kind of like an island, and then Brooklyn is across the water from it, but it's not much water, you know, like you could theoretically, like I'm sure people have swam it before. It's not that long at all. Like it's like a 10-minute subway ride, you know, it's not long. Um, and I was living on the Brooklyn side of that. Um, and Brooklyn is kind of like slightly more residential. Wait, can you hear me still?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Oh, that's right. Sorry, I hit that button on my little headset thing, but I'm not using my headset. So I realized that there was this cool place that we could go on the edge of the water, like where on the Brooklyn side, you go to the water and there was a fence that was there, but it was broken and you could climb through it and you could sit on the edge and you could look at all the skyscrapers at night and you could bring beers and stuff. And sometimes there would be like a bunch of people there. There'd be like 40, 50 people like just chilling, you know, with like brown bags of beers and stuff. And like all different kinds of people, you know, like just Brooklyn people. And that's what's cool about Brooklyn is that, you know, there's just all these different kind of people. Everyone's mostly just trying to be chill with each other. And there's not a lot of fighting. It's just people hanging out for the most part. So we would go and we would do that for the most part, and it was cool. Well, this one night, a friend of mine was visiting who's this white girl, and then she met this guy who was a black guy, who I think I had met him before. Like I think she met him through me. But then she was really interested in talking to him. I don't know, maybe she wanted to fuck him. I'm not sure. Like I just don't remember. But I was like, hey guys, you know what we should do? We should go to this place by the water. It's not that far away. It's only really about 10 minutes away. We could walk there. And they're like, oh yeah. I'm like, yeah, we can get some beers at the store and we can go sit there by the water. And my friend is like, oh, cool, because she was visiting, and the guy who's, you know, he's a black guy. He's like, I don't know about that. That sounds weird. That sounds sketchy. And I'm like, no, it's cool. It's cool. We can just go. People go there all the time. It's cool. And so we walked over there. We got some beers. And we go there to sit. And then I swear to God, we probably weren't there for any longer than 5 minutes before the police show up. And I had never been there when the police had shown up at all. Like I didn't know that the police came to chase people away from being there. Like I just didn't know that, you know. And so we're sitting there and there's the three of us, like this, you know, me, this like little gay white guy, and this girl, and then this black guy. And the police show up with like big flashlights and they're shining them on us. And they're like, hey, who are you? What are you doing there? Huh? And I stand up and I'm like, oh, sorry, officer. Are we not supposed to be here? And I kind of yell all like, and in my head, I wasn't being forceful or disgruntled or anything. But the black guy that we were with, he was like, yo, man, chill. He's like, chill, put your hands up. Like, and I was like, oh. And because I wasn't used to being confronted by police at all. Like I had no concept of this notion of like potentially getting shot or anything. I thought that if I just said hi to the police, they would be fine with me. And he was all like really nervous. Like he was all scared, you know? And that had never occurred to me before until then, you know? And so, like, I don't want to say that that's, entirely white, because I'm sure there's areas in the United States where police treat, you know, kind of like maybe like rednecky-ish guys in the exact same way or whatever. But certainly there's areas where if you're black, you're going to be a little bit more nervous about certain things. And, you know, we should think about that. Like it's worth taking into account. It's not like this unheard of thing to like that you have a little bit to worry about when you're black. So
I could see that. I don't know, because it's really hard to I don't know if we have much of an issue of that up here, but then we barely had any black people up here until a few years ago. So I don't even know if that's an issue up here. I know that natives have been picked on a lot up here because I've got a lot of native friends.
Huh.
Well,
Yeah.
Alaska's got like one of the biggest Native American populations in the whole US. So
Yeah, I have a friend that is part like Inuit or whatever. She technically owns some land, and they because both her parents are dead now, and they send her this is messed up. Like I don't know why this happens. Like I don't know why, but it's kind of messed up. Because of the fact that she's the last remaining, like she lives in Seattle, so she's not even in Alaska, and she's the like next of kin property owner of the like random land in Alaska, which granted Alaska is like half as big as the United States like by itself. So there's a lot of land in Alaska. They send her some sort of check every year.
oh yeah, that's pretty common. Usually if you're part of a tribe, you get there's actually tribal corporations, and depending on which tribe you're in, if you're a member of that tribe, you're already part of the corporation just through blood ties alone, and they invest in different things, and you actually get a check that's kind of like a stock check every year just being born into certain tribes.
Okay, well, every year it's $0.
Oh. Oh, that sucks. Does that mean she's like the only one in her tribe?
I guess, yeah,
Because yeah, my friend gets $5,000 a year because of the tribe they're in.
yeah, yeah. So hold on one second. Let's see. Okay, so the Democratic Party is. I'm just looking at the House. So it's 218 to 293. Oh, okay. So 50.1 declared in favor of the Democrats. And then there's another amount. Okay. Okay, just making sure. Just taking a look. Because I want to know.
It doesn't look like my candidate is winning. Oh well.
No, I like the stalemate result. I like, not negotiating with terrorists. Never negotiate with terrorists. Never let them think that their terrorist methods are going to pay off entirely. But also, don't make the fanatics think that we actually live in fascism and that their votes don't matter, because then they'll come and try to like kill me.
Well, I have a gun, so I don't have to worry about such things. Just kidding.
I have a collapsible baton by my door. But no, I don't know. I don't know. No, and the other thing is that like now that there's this like, it's not exactly a stalemate because it's ultimately a win for the Republicans, is what it is, because the Republicans are still in power. Like they are still in full. Like if it was the Senate and the House that was against the Republicans, then it would be a little bit. It would be a bit more of a stalemate, but that's not what it is. The investors, okay, this is something I haven't been saying. There was a look of complete and utter absolute somberness on the faces of everybody on the Young Turks, on ABC News, all of the legacy media was completely unhappy with these results. Like they were very, very unhappy. And it's almost as if, and this is what this is just my little theories as my little, Mr. Prophet of conspiracies. Prince of conspiracies, prophet of queens. That's how I fancy myself. I like to, instead of saying what I think is definitely going to happen, I like to explore the possibilities of what is maybe potentially going on and blah, 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 blah. Like, that's how I think of the world, and like, I know that I'm full of crap a lot of the time. Like, I know that I'm just saying things that maybe could kind of be true that I don't really have much basis for. Sure. I absolutely know that. But it does seem to me that, the big money investors who invest in Hillary Clinton, but they also invest in mainstream media and all sorts of things like that. It seems like the DNC was telling them, hey, we'll win back the House and the Senate. We're going to get it. We're going to get both of these. Trump it was a hoax. It was a fluke. He didn't actually win in 2016. We're going to get everything back. Don't you worry. Your $1.3 billion that you spent on Hillary Clinton is not going to go to waste. We're going to get it all back. Don't you worry. Don't you worry. Don't you worry. And these people in these places were like, okay, well, we don't have any other options because we don't know how to do business with Trump. We don't know how to talk to him. So, okay, well, we'll give you more money and see what happens in 2018. And that's what they've been doing for the past 2 years. And, well, it wasn't delivered. It certainly, there wasn't actually a blue wave, and nobody's going to be able to say that the votes were rigged for the Republicans. And maybe there's going to be some nice things happening in the future in terms of media. Like, maybe the Trump administration is going to be able to start looking, like, seriously looking into the internet and social media and the bias against libertarians, conservatives, and centrists, and determining that it's actually not okay to just silence people and give us hate speech strikes because of the fact that we aren't what they want us to be saying. Like, maybe the big investors are going to say, you know what, Susan Wojcicki of YouTube, you got to stop just with this like feminist crap. Let people say what they want to say. All right. We're not going to give you money forever. We thought that you were going to take everything back in the midterms. You didn't. All right. And maybe it's going to get a little bit better because of that. And that's the optimism that I'm hoping for tonight.
Well, I just looked at the results and I'm disappointed. Oh, well. Because the ballot measure I voted for was overturned and my candidate didn't make office.
Oh. The only thing that I was looking at that like, I didn't vote tonight. I went to vote. I looked at the ballot. I had it right in front of me. I decided I didn't want to vote on anybody or anything. And the only one I looked at that I was considering voting for was this police reform one. And I was like, you know what? Actually, I want to know what this means, because I'm all in favor of police reform theoretically, but I want to know what type, right? And then I looked at it, and it was, the arguments against said that it was something that was potentially divisive against the citizens and the cops, and it would lead to tensions between both. And I was like, okay, that sounds like some Black Lives Matter crap. Nope, not going to vote on it. I'm not going to say no, but I'm not going to vote on it. So I crumpled up my ballot and threw it in the trash because I'm Prince of Queens.
Oh, there was a ballot measure up here that I got interested in because of all the fear mongering. They're like, if we change Alaska habitat laws, then 30,000 people are going to lose their jobs or may lose their jobs. This might happen. Like, they were totally fear mongering. So I looked into it, and it was just simply an update to put our standards of wildlife protection to what it is basically the rest of the U.S. So just a basic update in these things. And I'm like, it's not really going to hurt them. They're just going to have to pay for more. The big oil companies are just going to have, and mining companies are going to have to pay for more environmental protection stuff, which I don't mind. I don't care. Yes, I'll vote for it. But it looks like the fear mongering won, and they're not going to update the wildlife policies.
Huh.
I just wanted to vote for it because I'm just like, damn it, your fear mongering will not work, but it did work. So I just hate it whenever, like, I don't care which side does it, but they use so much hyperbole in their campaigns and totally misrepresent the other side.
Yeah, that's silly.
Because, updating a little bit of an environmental protection law and making you do a few more safety checks and stuff isn't going to lose you 30,000 jobs. It just isn't. So yeah, that's the whole reason I was interested in even voting, is just because whenever something's really like divisive and things, I like to look into it and see whether or not all this fear is warranted, and then make up my own mind, and then I go and vote. But generally only if it's a very highly politicized issue.
Yeah, I feel like in Seattle, where I am, they weren't even doing anything like that. It was kind of like they were like testing the waters. Like, okay, so how much like Black Lives Matter BS can we maybe pass? And that's like what they were doing with that one measure. And because everything else was very like non-issue. Like it was like there was like one environmental thing. I was like, no, I'm not voting on some environmental thing. No, I don't care about your little like taxation on environmental regulations. No, I'm not. I don't care. And then I couldn't vote for any libertarians in my district because there was none. There were none. There was only Republicans and Democrats. I should have known not to pay for a Lyft car back from and back the voting place. Like I should have known not to do it. But I didn't really. But serves me good for that.
The environment is one of the only things that I guess makes me a hardline leftist, because I generally always, I read up on them beforehand, but I generally always support environmental issues.
Yeah, well, ultimately I kind of do too. I'm not okay, but here's the thing. Here's the thing about environmentalism. I don't think that environmentalism as controlled by the government is actually always environmentalism. I think that a lot of the time it's regulations so that the left can stay in power. And I also think that if it's a choice between fracking and getting all of our oil from Saudi Arabia, I'm going to take the fracking. And I know that it like sounds kind of like it's crappy, but like just the way that global conflicts are, like so much mess around dealing with the Mideast that if we could like not, I would be really, really relieved. So, yeah.
You're and also not a large part of your state's economy relies on commercial fishing either. So,
yeah, I'm not really sure.
Or does it? I don't know. Does Seattle rely on commercial fishing, or Washington? Because I know it's a huge chunk of our state's economy.
Yeah, no, I know that it is. Okay. I know for a fact that a lot of my friends go up to Alaska to fish every year. Like that happens. Like people go up there and fish. So there is that. But I don't know how much there is the economy here.
In Alaska, 80% of our fish go to Japan. Apparently, they pay top dollar for our fish, and that's a huge chunk of our economy.
Yeah. Japanese eat a lot of fish, and they use a lot of chopsticks. There's like entire there's this the world's largest garbage dump is in Japan, and it's largely composed of like food waste, which is largely composed or like food related things. Okay, it's largely composed of fucking chopsticks. It's like what it is. And it's like this like floating island or something. And there's an entire species of crow that lives only on that island. And they're very large and they swarm in, or no, it's not crows, it's ravens. And they swarm in packs and they've been known to attack full grown men like by themselves. So
I'm not too surprised ravens get really huge. I should probably get going though because it's getting late.
yeah. I people audience is dropping out and I don't really have anything more to say. So like it sounds good to me.
All right, good night then.
Yeah, I'll talk to you again soon, right? Everybody, it's been a great election night. Everything's wonderful. I love everybody. The end.